wanted to outline what it truly costs to receive permanent residency in Uruguay, because I recently received my permanent residency and so did my partner. So we both have been through the whole process. We actually have been here just over a year now. We had our anniversary at the end of December being here, coming from the United States. So I'm gonna overview in this video the different costs. I'm gonna first show you a spreadsheet that I have that I broke down the total cost for everything combined for both of us, and then separated by person. So it was about, for the cost through the agency that we chose, it was $2,300 a person, and that includes some extra things like the bank account opening. You don't have to do that. The rental guarantee process, and I'll explain what that is, but that's part of renting an apartment. You have to get a separate policy that protects the landlord. So I'll go over that as well. Translation documents and stuff like that, and different certificates. The additional costs, I'm going to call these the startup costs, are getting the documentation that you need in the United States. That includes the FBI criminal background check, shipping that to them for an apostille, and then having that returned to you. Also getting your birth certificates apostilled and returned to you. And if you actually need to order an additional birth certificate, which I ended up doing because they keep the birth certificate, so you want to have an extra one on hand, and then ultimately sending it back down to our agency. So the timeline from when they started working on our file was about 8 to 10 months. And now the base residency per person, as I said, was $1,251. This included a 10% discount. It would have been like over $1,300. So what I'm going to do is tell you what went into that. What does that cover? So it covers a few things. There's a whole process to receive, to get a hearing. You get a preliminary hearing. And so the agency handles the reservation of that hearing. So our hearing actually was January 8th, 2025. So leading up to it, I think it took them a couple of months to even get that date. And I don't even know how we would have done it without having somebody help us. So paying for that is worth it in itself. So at that hearing, you get your residencia en tramite. So that means like in transit. And so you get your Cédula, which is the identification card. You basically, they go with you to the hearing, and then you get your fingerprints done, and then 1 week later you can pick up the card, and that's exactly what happened. They did accompany us to that appointment. I don't know if we would have been able to do it on our own, to be honest. Being so new to the country, being there like 1 week, and not having a ton of Spanish, I think we could have struggled through, but I think having that, but again, we had to pay extra for that appointment. So it's kind of like, it wasn't part of the base cost. But the base cost is getting that appointment and then submitting all of the paperwork that I mentioned. So all the apostille documents, but also the documents proving that you have income. So we had to give them a bunch of like statements from our banks. We're both consultants, so we had to give invoices to prove that we are making money, all of those things. You also have to have a vaccination certificate for measles, rubella, mumps, MMR, and tetanus. So those things have to be done as well. One important thing about this vaccination certificate is if you only have a test that's blood that's showing you're immune, that's not good enough for the Uruguay system. you need to actually get it done again. So I just got my MMR done again when I was here. So that's very important. They're not going to honor any blood tests that you show. So one other thing I forgot was when we came here before we actually moved for real, when we took our trip to look at apartments, we were already working with the agency because we came like a month and a half before we actually moved, and they told us that we needed to get our Carné de Salud, which is like a health certificate. The health certificate, basically you just go into this, it's called MetaLab, and I believe it's like in the central part of the city, and you just get blood work done, and you'd have to do fasting, and then they just look at your teeth. It's like a standard thing that everybody has to get, and it lasts 2 years. So ours expired towards the end of 2026 because we went in November. So let's talk about some of these extra costs. So document translation. There were 4 documents that we got apostilled that needed to be translated to Spanish here by a local translator, so that the agency handled that. I'm sure there's a markup. So each document was $150 to translate. So we each had a birth certificate, so that's 2. We each had our FBI criminal background check, that's 2. So that's 4 documents. Total cost, $600, $300 a person. So the next document that is an extra fee for this residency service is the Notorial Certificate. So what is that? The Notorial Certificate is an official public document that is issued by an Uruguayan notary. They call it Certificato Notorial. And this is a key piece of information that will be transformed into an official document by the Uruguayan notary. They add a certification clause, so it basically legitimizes any foreign or domestic document, including income statements. So it verifies that it is authentic. So it's always needed for proof of income in apostilled translated documents. So a lot of times they call it like an escribano. Those are used in real estate transactions. They're also used in immigration procedures. So the notarial certificate, each one was $190, so that was $380 total for the 2 of us. The next optional service that we thought was very important to do, especially before we arrived, was the opening of a bank account, because we did not want to get here and not be able to access money easily. We know other people that had to do like Western Union and all this stuff, like because they didn't have bank accounts, and we just did not want to be in that situation. So we paid the price at $290 each, and this came with a savings account that had both pesos and dollars. This is the bank Itaú, and there is a minimum fee that we pay each month of $20, because I think if you are not a native citizen, you have to pay a fee no matter what, and unless you have like a local job and you're a permanent resident. So the fact that I became a permanent resident doesn't matter. I still have to pay this fee. I am going to look into maybe there's a way to lower the fee. I did do a little bit of research. I can find out about that. But basically, there was a bunch of paperwork. There had to be proof of an address, which would be the lease that we had, salary proof that you had, income tax returns from the states, and they want a letter of reference from the bank, but you literally cannot get a letter of reference from a bank. That is not a thing. So basically you just have a letter stating that you've had an account for X amount of time, and you just have your bank do that. And that's about it. But we were able to get these debit cards in our hands before we even actually moved down here, which was great. So the bank was already open, I already had money in it by that time. So one other cost was the Garantía del Alquiler, and that is the rental guarantee insurance. And what that is, this is totally new to us, it's an insurance policy that protects the owner of a property, and you have to submit income documents for that as well. And basically, it covers the owner if you skip town for unpaid rent, any type of damage, legal costs for evictions, and you have to pay as a tenant for this policy. So our first year, we had to pay $780 US for the policy. We just had our renewal and it went up to like 900 or something like that. That's like an additional cost on top of everything else. And also you have to submit a deposit ranging from 2 to 4 months. Because we were Americans, we didn't have any credit here or anything, so we had to submit 4 months. We weren't residents yet, we didn't even have our cedulas then. So it really makes a difference. I think it might make a difference if you have your cedula, because then you're like more legitimized in the eyes of the insurance company. And the company that we got was Sura, S-U-R-A, but this was all arranged by our agency. We had no idea, we just wanted the process to be smooth of getting an apartment, and if it meant getting the apartment quicker and being approved quicker, then we were going to pay this fee, which was $290. So it wasn't that bad as a one-time fee. So at the beginning of November of last year, 2025, now that we're in 2026, I was told by my agency that I was approved for permanent residency, so I could become a residente legal, and then my cedula would need to change. I would need to get another photo, new prints, everything. They could do it for me, of course, for a fee, but I did it on my own because I knew other people that went down to the Dirección Nacional de Identificación Civil. So it's basically the ID office. And so you can get an urgent appointment if you pay 800 pesos, but you have to show up like at like 7 a.m. They give out only so many appointments, maybe like 70 a day. And then you can then pick what day you want to come back to get the actual ID. So that's exactly what I did. I just sacrificed, I got down there. It was somewhere in Ciudad Vieja. And I waited in line for about an hour, got the appointment time for the next day, came back the next day, and I was able to get the identification. So it's totally worth it to do it on your own. Otherwise, I would have paid like $100, $110 to the agency. I did not want to do that. So the total costs per person come out to, counting everything with the agency fees and the extra setup, like before you get here, all the documents, came to for us $25.80 a person. I think that's pretty reasonable given everything that we had to do, and it probably could have been half the amount or even less if we tried to do it all our own and coordinating with different translators and interpreters, but that would have just been more possibility to make a mistake and to prolong the process. So I think sometimes in life it's worth it to pay somebody that knows what they're doing, even if they may be charging more than you would expect. I think at the time in August of 2024 when we signed the contract, we felt pretty good and we felt this was reasonable, but we didn't have a lot to compare to.